I know you're loving the WebP Converter tool that I put out there, but there have been some questions and some suggestions, and guess what? I've put them all into practice, and now version 2 is ready for you. I'm not going to bore you to death with every single change, and we're going to jump into the tool, and I'm going to show you how it works and how it looks a little bit different, and believe me, it's going to do a whole lot more than the previous version. Over here, you can see everything that's changed from the previous version to version 2, and there's a heap of stuff there. But let's jump into version 2. And just before we do that, I want to give you a reminder of what happens when you go and load in images normally. So I've got two PNGs here. I've got a large one, which is 3840 by 2160. And I've got a vertical portrait image, which is 1080 by 1920. They're PNG images, 3 megabytes and 10 megabytes. So obviously, when you load them in, they are going to be taking up space in your files and database and lots of hidden images that you're probably not aware of. Now, a lot of those images are created for responsive needs, but a lot of them you don't need. And I'm going to give you back a heck of a lot of control of how to handle that. And you can see here that I've got 19 images in my uploads folder. 9 have come from the portrait and 10 have come from this big, large landscape one, mainly because of the width of 3840. That's a lot of file space being taken up. And if you've got a website that's got 30,000 images or even 4,000 or even 100, you're duplicating them up. Yes, I know it's good for responsive needs, but like I said, I'm going to let you keep the ones you really need to keep. And here we are in WebP Converter version number 2. I'm going to zoom in on my screen so you can see it a bit better. Now on the left-hand side, we have the pane of action, where you get to apply some settings and click some buttons. And I'm going to come back onto that in a moment. We have the middle pane where you get to exclude images. Again, I will come onto that. And on the right-hand side, we get some instructions just to guide you on what would you do if you were uploading a brand new image. What if you've already got existing images, and just some important notes about how to understand the processing speed. And please do take a backup. Even if you're using this and it works for you, I would always say take a backup before you start to convert anything on any website with any tool or any code snippet. Let's have a reminder. I've got 2 images in my media library and it's already generated 19 images in my uploads folder. What if I want my maximum width to be 1920? So I've got a 3840, but I want to have 1920. You could, if you want, just use the default values that you will get when you activate this so that when I do a conversion, it will create a 1920 version, a 1200 version, 600 and 300. Now, by default, it will always generate a 150 by 150 thumbnail as well. You don't need to pop 150 in there. If you want to change the 300 to a 100, you can, but I'm letting you put in up to 4 values. Why am I doing that? Because browsers like to latch onto certain sizes. And even though you can get away with the full resolution after you've converted it into WebP and the thumbnail, some people felt like they still wanted to have the in-between sizes. And don't worry, this is all going to feed into your SRC set. It's all within the changelog that I showed you earlier. Rewind the video to go and have a look at it or look at the code, so that when you are looking at your website on a mobile device or a tablet, it will automatically latch onto the relevant size. But what if you didn't do that and you actually preferred how I did it in the previous version where you only ever have one value? I'm going to get rid of all of them and just leave 1920. So if I was to now run it, or any future uploads that you could do where you add directly into your media library or you do it via a widget or an element, it will always convert or scale them to be 1920 max. But if you do want to use the extra sizes, and like I said, you are allowed up to 4. I'm not going to say, 5, 6, 7, 8, because then it starts to get a little bit ridiculous. But if you just want to use the default ones, there's a button down here called Reset Defaults. Just click OK, and it sticks them back in there for you, and you get a bit of a log notice as well. I'm going to leave them as they are, just so that you get to understand how many images are generated. Now, you will notice that we do have a drop down. We have width or height. What if you're actually putting in loads of portrait images and you want to scale them to be a certain height? So maybe someone is taking photographs and the photographs are like 3,000-4,000 pixels high and you want to bring them down to be 1920 or 1,000 pixels high. You can now switch this to be height and again go and set your sizes. Either pop them in and you can pop in up to 4. You can do 1, 2, 3, or 4, okay? And it will always generate the 150 by 150. I want to stress that. Don't pop it in because it will already do it for you. But you can go and do that, and then you can go and click a button to say, go and set my height. I'm going to leave this on width, and I'm just going to click set width. So if you do ever make changes, go and click the button to make sure it sets it. The really important feature that I've also added is the quality 0 to 100. Now, by default, the previous version was defaulting to 82%. Some people said, well, actually, I want to have 90%, so you can go and do that. I'm just going to leave it as 80. And here's another little important feature that I added. Preserve original files. Because when you are processing existing images or you upload a new one, what it does is it scales it if it needs to, then it converts it into WebP. Then what it does is say, right, if you are no longer a WebP image and you don't fit the sizes we recommended, it deletes it from your uploads folder. Now, I've made sure the code does not touch your plugin folders. It will touch images in your uploads folder and any images that sit in the numerical folders inside uploads. So inside of uploads, you might have 2025 and then you might have 04 for any images loaded in April 2025. So it will touch and delete them. But if you've got any images that sit specifically in an elemental folder or a rank math folder or anything like that, or WooCommerce folder, it won't touch that. Now, I do want to assure you that I have done a lot of testing with this, and it works, and it won't destroy your thumbnails or break your linkages or anything like that. And just to prove it, if I show you this page, this is built using the original large and tall PNGs, because I haven't run the tool yet, okay? For the purpose of this video, I started from scratch, okay? I've just added in my PNGs and all of these, the carousels, this image over here. We got a flip card background image for this container. We've got a gallery over here. It's currently set. What's this gallery set at? A grid layout. And over here, I've got a post. So I added in, this is the featured image. I've got a custom post type, and this is a custom post inside of the custom post type. And this is a product, which is called B1. That's the featured image. And if I just show you the products page, ignore the fact that all of those images are missing because I deleted everything out. But there's the product image over there. So when I go and process it, and we do the conversion and all of that, we're going to revisit this back again, and you will get to see that everything is still okay. So what will happen if you leave these settings as they are and it remembers it, and you go to your media library or you're inside of a widget or an element, and then you upload a brand new image or a load of images, what it will do is first scale them or check the size as per what you've said, whether you've opted to go for width or height. I recommend you go for width unless you really need to go for height, because width kind of tends to be how things tend to usually be worked out and used responsibly. But it will do that, scale it, convert it to WebP, and then it will go through and get rid of any other images in your files and uploads database folder. And if you have not ticked preserve original files, it will get rid of the original PNG or JPEG that you loaded through. That's really important, okay? But if you tick that, it will do everything I've just said, right? The scaling, the conversion, and all of that. But it will keep your original PNG or JPEG in your files and database. In your media library, you'll see the WebP. But if you ever need to get back the original PNG or JPEG, so like mine was 10 megabytes for the large image, I don't want to keep it. But what if I was a bit worried about losing it or not having it for other purposes? You can preserve it. So if you keep that ticked and leave the screen now, you don't have to hit save or anything, you just leave it. It will now maintain the original, because some of you are asking about that. So it's built in, I've tested it, it works. But for now, I'm actually going to get rid of it. So if I was to upload the large and tall image again, what I would actually get is what you see on screen over there. It goes from 19 images to 10. And you're going to go, 10? Why is it gone for 10? Well, think about it, okay? You have the 1920 size, you have the 1200, the 600, the 300, and the 150 by 150. That's 5 images for the large. And for the tall, you will get other sized images as well, because it's kind of following the width at the moment. So it will have like a 600 wide and a 300 wide. You can go and adjust them if you want, but most people are going to be concerned about the width. So that is what would happen for new uploads. But I've already got the large and tall in my media library and inside of my files and database. Please remember, I don't want to preserve the original file. So let's go and click run all. You're going to get notification that do you want to run all the steps? And what it's doing is it runs the scale function, the cleaning up and deletion. And if the images were previously already being used in a post, maybe like your content or a thumbnail, WooCommerce, or an image, a background container, carousel, gallery, flip card, all of this stuff, right, that I already did on that other page, it will ensure that if their original file type was JPEG or PNG or even WebP, it will ensure they are all WebP. Because some people were worried about that. So I'm now going to click OK, and you'll see what happens with the log. It's going to start doing its stuff. Sometimes you will notice a little bit of a delay and then it runs through. It does it now in batches of 50 because it kind of handles processing a bit better there. If you're ever running this on a website that's got like hundreds or thousands of websites, you might not see anything happen, but you know it's happening because if you watch the screen carefully, you would have seen a stop button appear. While it is still running and the full conversion is not done, and it will go through every image, the word stop will stay there. So don't sit there and going, oh, I haven't seen an update for the last 20 seconds or so. Just wait, okay? Please don't go and cancel out or refresh the page. When it's done, the stop button disappears and you now get conversion complete appear. And what this is telling me that all steps are completed. And I'm now just going to click OK. You can now see it's deleted all of those other images that are no longer required. The PNG versions, the 864 by 1536, they were not needed because it doesn't fit the criteria I set for the max width. And if I just quickly jump over to my SiteGround server for this particular website, can you see here we got 5 for the large and 5 for the tall. There's the original image, but it's a WebP. If I had said preserve, you would have had the original large .png also still present. We got, well, that's going to be the 1920 width because that's what it is. 1200, 600, 300, and the 150 by 150. Please remember, though, if you don't want to have that many sizes, just get rid of them. You know, and you can pop in whatever values you want. So I might go for 780. Maybe you want to have that particular width as well. Maybe you're very prescriptive over what they are. I know some people have said that. They've said, we don't mind the 1920, but we want to have 900, 600, and 300 or 350. Fine. Now you get to control what's happening because a lot of that was out of your hands with WordPress, right? I know in the settings, you can say what your medium and large are, but what about everything else in between? Well, you can maintain that. And like I said, the 150 by 150 will always happen by default. And when we jump over to the media library and we go to the tall image, it's 1080 by 1920 because 1920 was our maximum width. Remember, we're doing everything by width. I didn't select height. So 1080 is below that, so it's maintained it. But if I go over to the large image, the size of that is 1920 times 1080. It started off as 3840. It's converted it into WebP and look, it's totally okay. So even though in my files and database, there are like 10 images over there, I'm okay with that because they've converted into WebP before they go and make all the copies. And if I go back over to my page, everything is still there. I have not cheated and added everything back in again, right? Everything is still there. This image, look, if I click this carousel, it still opens up. We got a flip card with the images backwards and forwards. I have not changed anything. If I go into this particular post, that is not the featured image. That is the image that was inside of the content for this particular post. It is still present. It's not been lost. And if I right click it, can you see over there? It's pulling through the WebP. So when I originally created that, that was a 3840 PNG image. It's now pulling through the 1920 by 1080. And if I go to this particular product, you're going to see the single product template. It's going to look ridiculously silly, right? Because I went and added the tall image as the featured image. I should have done the landscape large one. But look, my thumbnails are still coming through. Again, look, this is me being really silly because I added different sizes there. But they've not broken. And if I go over to my products page, bear in mind I have zoomed in, so things might be a little bit off scale. The image is still there. Remember, at any time you can clear the log. And if you want to do things individually and you don't want to click run all, because this area is mainly for when you have existing images. So you're now adding in the snippet, take a backup first. And now you just want to run it through and get everything to be consistent and become a WebP. Or you could just do them manually. So if you don't want to delete any images or anything like that in your files and database, just go for the convert and scale. If you need to fix any URLs, and by the way, when you click it, what will happen is you'll get a bit of a message. I'm not going to get any updates because they're all gone through. But what it will do is if it does do it, it will inform you what it's done. And please don't forget, when you do set the settings or when you are running all, you can maintain the original PNG or JPEG if you want to keep that. Just bear in mind, though, if the original PNG was like 20 megabytes and it was a ridiculously big size, it will keep that in there. So just have a think about if you want to do it. But let me move on to one of the really neat extra features, which was exclude images. What if you want to run it and you want to process everything? And I am intentionally just going to hit reset default so everything goes back to how it was. And I'm going to change my, no, I'll tell you what, let's go for height. And I'm going to change my height to be 200, and we're going to set the height, and I'm going to change the quality to be 70%. And you can see it responds or lets you know back in the log. What if I want to hit run, but I don't want to touch certain images? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to click add from media library. Watch this. This is really neat. I'm going to click that and it opens up my media library. And I'm going to click this image and I'm going to add it to my list. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to add this other image in as well. So I have now got 2 images, the only 2 images in my media library excluded. And I've set the height to be 200, okay? It is set there. The max height is set to 200. Now I'm going to click run all. Watch the log. And that went through really quickly. And before I hit all steps completed, because then it will do a quick cleanup if it needs to, it is telling me that it's excluded the images and there's no more images to process. It has not converted or scaled anything. And if I click OK, there's nothing really to do because I excluded them. And if I go to my media library and I click it, 1920 by 1080, 1080 by 1920, they have not been touched. So let's go back to our WebP Converter and I'm going to get rid of the tall image. I want the tall one to be affected. The large one we will leave as it is. Don't touch that. But the tall one, I want it to be a maximum of 200 in height. So now I'm going to hit run again. And this time, the tall image has now been converted. You can see the message down there. Let's go and click OK. And it's gone and deleted loads of other files now. Let's go to our media library. If we go to my large image, that is still 1920 by 1080. But when I go to the tall, that is now 113 by 200. It's been changed. And if we go over to my files and databases, look, all of the large sizes are still there as WebP. There's our tall. That's the new size. Whatever it was times 200, and we still have the 150 by 150. So you can be really specific over what you're doing. And remember, if you're a little bit unsure, click or check the box to preserve the original or whatever you got before you run anything. And don't forget to hit reset default if you want to just get everything back to the standard 80% and all of those values. What do you think of that? And I also want to point out that if I was to go into edit with Elementor, this particular page, here we have an image. The image is there, okay? That is the WebP image that it's currently using. If you were to inspect it, you would see it was doing that. If I go over to the background container, the image is there because in previous versions, and I have seen this happen with other tools as well, the preview that you get here kind of disappears. Well, it's not. It is now visible there for you. But here's something a little bit extra that I really feel like I need to stress and point out. Do you see this image over here? If I go over to it, currently the image resolution is set to full. So what do you think you're going to see when I click onto that? Bear in mind that I've got like the 1200 size. Well, I've got the full, the 1200, the 600, the 300, and the thumbnail, which is 150 by 150. Look at that. I've got full, custom 1200, custom 600, custom 300, and thumbnail. If you were not running this tool, you would probably get 8, 9 different sizes appearing there. Now you're only getting what you kind of have scaled up and done with the tool. Now I know some of you are going to say this still isn't enough, there's a problem here, or there's something not right. The code for this is open source for free. You can go and get it, right? There's a link in the video description to get the code. If you want to do something extra with it, you can feed back to me, but please don't assume that I'm going to bust a gut working solely on this because I have other priorities and other clients and things to work on and videos to produce as well. But I took on a lot of feedback and views and opinions based on when we put this out on Monday. And I also already had at the back of my mind things I wanted to do to it anyway. I hope you like what you see here. Now, you will notice that I'm not telling you how quick it processes. I'm saying just wait and let it happen, and you'll see regular updates every 50 images. If you got less than 50, you'll get a log update a lot quicker. Reason being is I felt the processing was a bit misleading because sometimes it might only process 60%. And some people might have thought, oh, does that mean 40% was not done properly? No. it's because 40% of your images did not need to be processed. And I'm only using that value as an example. But I hope this helps you out. This is version 2. Rewind the video if you want to go through the main things that I changed. There's a lot of things. If you go and look at the code and compare it to what was put out on Monday, if you still got a copy of that, the code has almost triplicated. Well, it's more than double for sure, but it's close to triplicated in size. I think it works really super great now. I'm using it on one of my websites. I've just tested out on 3 other websites. Someone offered for me to log in and use their site, and it's working absolutely fine. Now, look, if you have not got GD or Imagick on your host provider server, or you've got a really outdated PHP, or your server provider says we're not going to free up resources or whatever to allow you to do this, especially if you've got thousands and thousands of images on your website, there's not a lot I can do because you're going to have an issue with whatever tool you use. But if you've ever had a problem with your website becoming super big, 7 GB, 4 GB, all of that, and you didn't realize or fully understand it was all of these images that are being duplicated, or you've got a legacy website, people are uploading, maybe you got a directory, clients are uploading, this is going to massively help you out. Now, some people have said to me, what about AVIF? Now, unless you've got a phone that's updated or is later than iOS 16, anything prior to that, so prior to 2022, and there'll be a lot of kids, people who've got maybe someone else's phone and they haven't updated or it's an old phone, AVIF won't work for them. And I don't want to build that in until maybe a year or 2 down the line until I know it's much more safer to do so. Other people asked about HEIC. I totally get that. Sometimes I've taken photos on my mobile phone, the iPhone, and then like you want to upload it or you send it over to your machine, you got to convert it to a JPEG or a PNG before you convert it to a WebP. That requires a whole heap more of other stuff that has to be on your server, and then we're entering murky waters, and I don't want to do that. But compared to what we had coming out on Monday, and at the time of recording, it is Wednesday, close to 2 p.m. Well, it's 2 p.m. now. This has evolved immensely, and I hope you appreciate it. Some people think this is garbage. Some people don't think I know what I'm talking about. Some people think I'm an amateur. Some people just want to like spew fire and shit all over this. That's fine. That's up to you. Go and develop and make something better. But this is free for you to use. Make sure you take a robust backup, right? Don't just rely on Updraft or something. Make sure you downloaded one. All-in-one migration. That's a great tool. Download a backup onto your hard drive somewhere, okay? Make sure your host provider has got a good backup as well. Don't come to me and say, I used it and it affected some images. This is so much more watertight and bulletproof than what I had out before. But you got to make sure you got a backup with any new plugin, tool, snippet you ever add. I hope this makes a difference for you and your clients and your businesses. And maybe now you're going to go back and look at your host provider server storage and you will go, right, I got 4 or 5 websites. You got your backups and all that. You're going to run it and just watch the size shrink massively down. I'm Imran from Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And I must stress as well, when you're sharing, use the share link under the video. Never use the URL in the address bar that has the word watch. If you do that for anyone's video, you're actually hurting their channel because YouTube do not like that. So always use the share link. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.